Hello everyone, and thank you for joining me for episode 7 of the Disco Cosmic. I am the Disco, you are the Cosmic, and here we go. We are going to jump right in. First of all, we're gonna bang on tables. Right. New moon blessings. And Kitty, right, Leo, new moon in Leo. This episode is not going to be about the new moon in Leo. There are such wonderful resources out there all about the new moon in Leo. I encourage you to go check them out. But bless whatever your rituals are, whatever your wishes are, whatever your intentions, manifestations, whatever you do to talk to the moon. Bless from me to you. New moon in Leo. But what we are going to focus on, so a lot of times when I'm making these videos and I'm doing my studies and I'm just, kind of wandering around in my liminal space and checking out what the planets are doing, things that catch my interest, that's what I decide to do a video on. So what is really catching my interest is what's happening today. The new moon in Leo is tomorrow, January. I keep saying January. It is July 24th. But what happened today, July 23rd, is that, I want to get this right, this is a little bit complicated astrology. Venus is in Gemini, which is squaring Mars in Virgo, right? So you've got Venus and Mars, which we know. We know there's that incredible interaction and tension and really luscious activity that goes on between Venus and Mars anyways. They are squaring each other. Mercury is in retrograde. What rules the sign of Virgo? Mercury. What rules the sign of Gemini? I guess it's also Mercury. And I don't exactly know what this means because I don't know what south nodes mean. Seventh scene, right? We're still sticking to the seventh scene. I have not ventured into Uranus just quite yet, but I'm getting there. But Venus is the more dominant energy in this square because it is also squaring the south nodes. And if you're a better astrologer than I am, you know what that means. But what I know that it means is that the Venusian energies in this square, in this astrological action event that is happening today, Venus is the more powerful energy. Hence the red hair, right? Yes, I'm tapping into a little Venusian, Venusian hands and everything just for this video. But I found that to be very interesting because I think the interplay between this square and these planets, with Mercury kind of being the underlying thread and it being in retrograde, I do think this is a wonderful time. Especially, I love doing these videos not about the new moons or full moons, but that can be added to new moon and full moon practices, right? These are other things that are going on around the new moons and the full moons. And, if you follow the quarter moons, whatever stages of waxing or waning, whatever, you can add this into your practice, you can add this into your manifestations, and you can add this into your rituals. So that's why I think, when stuff like this stands out to me, I think this is important. There's something about this, and it is a new moon in Leo, right? What is Leo? What do I love to talk about with Leo? I love to talk about courage, right? Three Musketeers. It's what helps boost my ability to understand and accept death happens, that my life happens, disability happens, all these things in the world happens. It allows me to move forward in spite of that adversity. We all of us have that within us. All of us do. There's no such thing as a bad chart. And in fact, there are there are astrologers out there who even say, having like all these quote unquote like wonderful placements don't do the human justice, right? Because we're here to learn about planet Earth. We're here to learn how to manage the challenges of planet Earth. So Leo is a sign of courage. It's the sign of let's get in there. Let's get in there and do what we can do. All for one and one for all. So welcome to Leo season, new moon in Leo blessings, but also understanding that this is a great time to start, if we're really going to have courage. What is one of the, when we talk about existentialism, one of the very first books that is attributed to Western academia, right? Right. is Kierkegaard and Fear and Trembling. what are people so scared of in that book? What is he talking about? He's talking about the leap of faith of owning your own existence. He's talking about not being in denial. And with this new moon coming, of this courage, and what do new moons do? They illuminate, right? They shed, they show, they reveal. What are we in Mercury retrograde? What kind of Mercury retrograde, like we talked about last time? This is a very revealing, powerful, with Saturn retrograde and Mercury retrograde going on, both in fire signs. Powerful revelations are going on. So this, square between Venus and Mars that happens to be in Gemini and Virgo, and nothing's an accident, right? Both ruled by Mercury. What are they trying to tell us? And that's what we do here in the disco. We talk to the planets. The planets are people. We form intimate relationships with the planets. So we will invite Saturn in, we will invite Mars in, Venus, we're going to invite Mercury in, we're going to invite, we're all here, we're all ready to disco. So that's what you can expect from today's episode. We're going to talk a little bit more about that and how I think it relates to authenticity, denial, and truly being able to, how do we start to strip away those layers, right? How do we start to get refined and get a clearer and clearer and clearer picture of us? The cosmos right now, the planets are aligning for this process to happen if we choose to follow it. And again, know your natal chart. Where is this hitting in your houses? Where is Mercury retrograde in your house? Where is the new moon in your house? That will give you the story. It will open up the story. So we're going to do that. We're going to just have a little talk. We are going to do a little tarot size. Just a real quick one. What does Venus have to fucking say? What does Mars have to fucking say? And then what's the clarity we need from it, right? And I think that's actually what I wrote. What do I need to get real about? Mars and Virgo. That'll be the first card. What do I need to get real about? Slowly. Because let's remember. Denial and things that we have illusions about, and the power of control and the power of illusion, we have those things for a reason. It's to protect ourselves. They're protective. They may be maladaptive, but they're still coping mechanisms, right? It's not the goal, I don't think, to strip away all coping mechanisms and just be like, yes, just drown forever in liminal existential nihilism. I do not think that is the point. I do think it is the point to find the courage to be your authentic self. And how and why? Why are we holding on to those points of illusion? What is so scary? And with this beautiful, we're going into Leo season. We've got Mercury in retrograde in Leo. We've got Mars, doing its thing in Virgo. There's an opportunity here between the tension and the square between Mars in Virgo and Venus in Gemini that we can really lean into, I think, in this new moon. So I just want to talk, I already am talking a little about that. So that's the tarot size. And then I'm going to finish up with a very, very small little excerpt from this book, Discovering Your Personal Daimon. However, a lot of people like to say it different ways. I say it Daimon, like it's French. I don't know. But in today's times, a lot of people are wondering, what is their purpose? What is their purpose? What are they here to do? Right, if we're going to start to take our existence seriously, that comes with a whole bunch of questions. So what is it then? What is it? And there's been philosophers who have written entire books about that very question. What is it? Period. So I think this book has really helped me. I think it's a wonderful way to start exploring other parts of yourself. And that's part of this Mars and Venus tension. We do have these coping mechanisms, denial and power, and the illusion of power and things like that for a reason, because we are protecting ourselves. There is some sort of coping mechanism going on. And part of that tension in Venus and Gemini is, how then do we can't just let it loose, right? That's Mars out of control. That's Mars on a rage, especially in Virgo. That's Mars raging down the street. We don't want that. Venus wants to create a safe place in Gemini. So we're thinking, we're using all of our emotional intelligence is intelligence too. Gemini, we're using all of that emotional intelligence not just to be like, oh, this is what I'm in denial in and I have to work on it. Where do we put it? What does that really mean? And how do we create a safe space that we can put those things that we are protecting? Because it's not an overnight process. And that's, I think, another thing about astrology. It's not like, you know, oh, I had a new moon, so everything in my life changed. No, it's a forever growth. It's a forever strive. As humans, you've got to, even you don't have to do anything. I find in my life, I've got to continually remind myself that it's always a striving. It's never done. Never done. There's nothing that's ever done until it's done. It's always a striving. There's always more to learn. There's always more ways to learn. So with that being said, let's get on with the disco. Thank you for being here. Okay. Just to talk a little bit more about the Venus in Gemini squaring Mars and Virgo. And, you know, again, I always give credit to Adam Aldenbos. If you don't follow him, you know, he is my teacher. He is who I'm taking the courses from. He's amazing. So a lot of times he does inspire a lot of what I talk about. And what makes him such a great teacher, and Adam, if you're out there, if you can hear me, what makes him such a great teacher to me is that he really does give you space to make up your own mind. He taught me how to form my own personal relationships with the planets that are not just like, oh, I'm an intuitive astrologer who doesn't, study or do anything. I study, I do the things, I know my stuff, I do the whatevers, but he also gave me the capacity to have my own subjective opinion when I'm thinking about the planets, how they relate to my life, how they relate to my natal chart, etc., etc. To me, you can't get a better teacher than that. So bravo to you, Adam, with that onwards. So this comes from Adam, what I'm about to talk about. There is a theme of karmic burnout. And I think this is important to talk about, especially when we are talking about spiritual things, spiritual circles, spiritual practices. We're discoing in the liminal. Spiritual hygiene is so freaking important. It's why I wear the wigs on my head, okay? They're not just for show. It's to protect my spirit area, okay? To protect it from all y'all. Right, blessed right here. And they're cute too, right? But, so doing things with intention, and we can strive and strive and strive, like I was talking about before, and there's this rigidity of Virgo, right? Virgo is perfectionist. Virgo, again, I always, I guess maybe it's my favorite planet. If you've known me long enough, but Mercury exalted in my 9th house. It's ruled and exalted. It's in Virgo. It's in my 9th house of learning and academia. It's where it's the happiest, but it can also, sometimes I need to shut the fuck up. Sometimes I need to turn it down, okay? And knowing that balance. So with Mars there in Virgo, if you think about Virgo type qualities and Virgo type energies, if you were making a set for a movie for Virgo, it would have to be perfect down to every single detail, or it's not okay. And then you have Mars coming in there being like, it's extra not okay, and I'm just gonna nitpick and micromanage. Yeah, this is a hard transit. And then you've got it squaring Venus, but that's what Venus is coming in to do. Venus is coming in to massage in Gemini, squaring that Mars. They're talking to each other. They can see each other. Planets are people. And, trying to be like, hey, right here, right over here. And, you can be rigid, and some structure is good, and being disciplined is good. They're everything in moderation, even moderation. But hey, ease it up a little, right? And what is Venus very good at? We're very good at, moving spaces and creating spaces where things can move, and creating spaces where people can relax. We're your friend who you tell a story to and all of a sudden, you're in tears because we're just safe and we want you to feel safe. Sometimes that can work not in our favor. Like if you got to get stuff done, don't call your Libra friend, baby. We're going to tell you, hey, blow it off. Let's go hang out. But it's those same energies is what I'm trying to get at. It's that same energy where like the overworkaholic who maybe needs a little bit of break from their fun, easygoing, laid back friend. And how do we find the balance in between that tension? And I say it over and over, and the more I learn about astrology, the more I truly, truly believe that those tensions between the planets are where we exist as humans. That, and we're not always there, we're not always balanced, we're always in the spectrum, we're always in between, we're always in the galaxy. It's hard, it's challenging, but it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And I think that is one of these lessons, why we have aspects and angles and trines and sextiles and squares, why we have these different ways to know what the planets are saying to each other. And then, right, you lay that over your natal chart, you got a whole nother story to think about. So that's really all I want to talk about today for the astrology portion of the Disco Cosmic, is just really hit on that, you know, today was an important day. And when things like, when big transits like this happen, it's not like, you know, oh, this happened today, so, you know, now it's over. And again, coming in through Jupiter, themes of what can I do, who I am, what are motivations. Now we're starting to see more action, right? Mars is on the move. Saturn's going retrograde, but we're also seeing some slowing down. We're also seeing refinement. How do we do it a little bit better? So really, you know, I do feel like, you know, I talk to Venus and I talk to Mars, and where do I exist talking to both of them in between, right? How am I you know, listening to both sides and understanding them and transmuting them into my life so that I'm not existing in cognitive dissonance. I'm not existing in a overly saturated Venusian fantasy world, and I'm also not existing in a Mars-filled, you know, dystopian nightmare that I have to scream about 24/7. Where's the balance? Where's the balance? No easy task. But again, we're Saturnian here at the disco. Never gonna ask you to do anything easy. Okay, so the last thing we're gonna do, or the last two things we're gonna do, is we're gonna do a tarot size that I already explained. I'm gonna be using the This Might Hurt tarot deck because I feel like when we're dealing things, like I said, when we're dealing things like with denial, cognitive dissonance, willful denial, you know, the grasping of false power as an illusion of control, really grasping to that illusion of control to the point where it's skewing other things in your life because you're afraid to face what's really going on. These are tender things, right? And we're never trying to re-traumatize anyone. That's number one rule here in the disco. We're never trying to re-traumatize anyone, but we want to talk about, you know, we don't want to spiritually bypass either. So we try to talk, and that's why I talk about respectful nuance. We try to talk about things in a way that opens up the space, keeps it safe. You can take what you need, and we're all just here to disco, right? And like I said, leave me comments, let me know what you think, let me know if there's other things you'd like me to talk about, or if you have questions, because I am getting into some, you know, like I said, you can find stuff about, you know, the new moon in Leo anywhere you go. Here in the disco, I'm trying to do, you know, right, I'm trying to do something a little bit different. Fill it in. There's more going on out there than just the new moon. And not that that takes away from anything. The new moon is still extraordinarily important, but that the knowing of the other transits and the understanding of the depth of what the planets are asking can really complement and fertilize. Yeah, fertilize in a sexy way. I'm gonna say it like that. Fertilize your moon practices. All right, let's get on with our tarot size. Okay, so I've already done my invocations. I've already pulled the cards. We are all set to go. And I want you to remember the deck that I used. It's called This Might Hurt. And right, because it might. When, like I said, whenever we're dealing with things like denial, things like cognitive dissonance, things like, you know, holding on to a erroneous erroneous power of control in order to not deal with your reality, it's usually because it's for a very good reason. So I just want to acknowledge that going forward, and that nothing in this is trying to minimize any of that. But sometimes, and again, we're a Saturnian channel here, sometimes this might hurt, and sometimes the things that we really need to hear might hurt. And I do feel that in this tension between Mars and Venus, this is the time to confront, and then, like I said, not just set these rageful feelings free or these painful emotions that we are working so hard to cope with out recklessly. Let's create a safe place for them to go, so that we can start working with them in a way that benefits us and our community. All right, let's get going. That's my speech for that. So Mars and Virgo, what do I need to get real about? What do I need to reflect on? We've got the Knight of Pentacles. So, right, what do we need to reflect on? We may not be as stable as we think we are. And again, this is another place to know where are these transits especially your Saturn retrograde. Where are these transits happening in your chart? What houses are they in, so that you have a better idea. Is this hitting your house sector? Is it hitting your home and family? You know, where is Mars in Virgo? Where's Virgo? What house is it in? So you know what kind of things to look out for and how to really work with those energies. But there's some illusion of control that you are in a more stable place than you think you are. And that doesn't necessarily mean money. Again, not trying to scare anybody here. Doesn't mean money. It's not the tower, okay? We're not talking catastrophe. There's an area, and it's a night, right? It's not your whole house. It's not your whole life. There is an area of your life that you may not be being honest with yourself about, that you may need help from someone else, which, right, that's part of owning up to who you are. That's part of being authentic, is asking for help and being like, look, I think something might feel like it's wrong, like it's not me. So that's another part of this too. Take a look in this new moon and whatever kind of rituals you do, what is coming up for you. Really take a look in this new moon, like what are you, and again, Leo, courage. Courage doesn't happen without fear. It almost requires fear, right? It's not really courage if you're not scared of it, right? So, think about things. What am I actually scared of? And where can I get the courage? Where do I need that courage to face it? And what am I not entirely being honest with myself about? That doesn't mean you have to go tell everyone. To start to think about it, okay? We are in a Mercury retrograde. Slow it down. Everything gets slowed down. So from Venus in Gemini, so right, this is so beautiful. How do I create the safe space? How do I create the safe space? Something is unstable and something is worrying me about my life, myself, somewhere in my life. I am not feeling, and I'm not telling anyone about it, and I'm not really dealing with it, and I need to talk to someone about it. And what Venus, create a safe space, the star. I want you to think about the people around you that you can trust, the people that do make you feel, even if it's just one, the people that do make you feel loved and heard. And be clear. This is something that's coming through. Be clear about what you need. I need to talk to you uninterrupted about this. I am not feeling, like I'm riding my motorcycle all the way straight, or there needs to be some more refinements, or there needs to be, I need some help. And knowing that whatever this instability is, whether it's emotional, physical, spiritual, financial, whatever it may be, that it's divinely guided, because that's what this time is about, right? It's also what the planets are saying. Yes, please take a look back at your own self, your own actions. You are blessed in this journey. You are blessed and you are protected and you are safe. And the coping skills you were using to protect whatever you felt like you needed to protect before, you can let them go. Look at her. She's dropping them away. She's pouring out the water and back into the ecosystem. You can compost it, as my therapist and I like to say. You have to hold on to it, and you're supported and you're held. It can be very, very scary, which requires courage to really lean into the star energy of being held and supported by the universe. You're not alone, no matter how much you feel it. It does. Wait a minute. We're all connected. David Lynch. We've watched enough David Lynch together to know that this is true by David Lynch, and I invoke David Lynch, and that's all I have to say about that. So, our last card then for tonight is, how do we get there? Queen of Cups. We keep feeling our feelings in a safe manner. And I think that's what a lot of this, as I keep going through this video too, that's what a lot of this is coming down to. This Gemini, this Venus squaring Mars in Gemini and in Virgo, which are also both ruled by Mercury, and we're in a Mercury retrograde. It is telling you to slow down, to get real, face your fears. You have the time. It's giving you a space and time to face your fears, because who knows what's coming next, right? So take this time, take it. Meditate on that new moon. New moon blessings to everyone. So that's all I got for y'all. Oh, I wanted to read my little passage. It's very fast. Again, this is called Discovering Your Personal Daimon by Kat Rose Neligan. And I just feel there's so much hopelessness going on in the world right now, where people really are searching, what is my purpose? And this is one of those books that I found really helped me, and not necessarily telling me, right, this is your purpose, starting to look at the different signs and symbols. It's much more complex and beautiful than I can ever describe. I'm just gonna tell you that. This book really did change my life. Kat, if you're out there, thank you. All right, by turning our attention towards the good in a platonic sense, which we can do at any time, regardless of our birth chart, we can transmute any experience into a meaningful and valuable one, even if it carries with it a hefty dollop of difficulty. Saturn. The practice of astrology is the most compelling way I know how to do this. And I agree 100%, which is why I'm here, is why we did the disco. So we're gonna wrap it up with that. I think the next time I'm gonna do some tarot scopes for August. Rising sign. So right, you got until next week. You got until next week to find out your rising sign. Where you were born, day you were born, what time you were born. Find out. We'll do rising scopes in the disco for August. Until then, have whatever kind of week you need. Thank you. Always, always, always gratitude. This is so much vitality for me. Disability joy is resistance. Thank you to everyone who is a part of teaching me to love who I am, and that includes y'all too. So I'm the disco, you're the cosmic out.